Hello, welcome to today's informational webinar on Community National Schools for Parents. My name is Seamus Conboy and I'm a Director of Schools with Education and Training Boards Ireland. And with me today is my colleague Megan White, who will introduce herself in a minute. I am, as I said, Director of Schools with ETBI, but I'm formerly a primary school teacher and principal of a Community National School in City West. And since 2016, I've been working in ETBI on the development of the Community National School model across the country, and also on ethos-related issues in our 250 plus post-primary schools. So I'll ask Megan now to introduce herself.
Hello everybody, my name is Megan White and I'm an Educational Policy and Development Officer in ETBI. In my role, I support Community National Schools in the area of ethos and patronage, and in particular I support them with their patrons curriculum, which is called Goodness Me, Goodness You, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. I'm also a primary school teacher in a Community National School, currently on secondment to ETBI.
Great, Megan, thank you. So the aims of today's informational webinar are to provide an overview of the ethos of Community National Schools. We'll also discuss the role of ETBs, our Education and Training Boards, which are the patrons of Community National Schools. And also then Megan will describe to you more about the Goodness Me, Goodness You curriculum that's unique to Community National Schools. And then we'll outline very briefly the future of CNSs as they grow and expand across the country. So essentially, what are Community National Schools? And this image here sums it up very well. There's a few words there, but they all are very meaningful. So first of all, we'll start with state, that CNSs are state schools. And that's really significant because there are over 3,000 primary schools in the country, but Community National Schools, those 27 current Community National Schools, are the only schools, primary schools that are state funded and also state managed. So all of our primary schools are state funded in that the state pays for the teachers, the upkeep of the buildings and so on, but they're managed by private patrons and they are mostly managed by religious bodies. So for example, the Catholic Church manages 90% of the schools, Church of Ireland manages 6% of the schools, and another private body, Educate Together, manage the vast majority of those remaining schools. So we are, I suppose, a small but very significant sector in that we are the first state multi-denominational primary schools in the country. So that's state. Then moving on to co-educational. We educate all of our schools, regardless of where they are in the country, are all co-educational at primary and post-primary level, in that we educate boys, girls, and all gender identities together, always in all of our schools. The third one around that outer circle, is multi-denominational. And that is significant, given particularly at primary level, given the that 96% of our primary schools in Ireland are denominational, be they Catholic or Church of Ireland. So we're multi-denominational, and that essentially means that our schools are open to children of all religions, all non-religious worldviews and beliefs, and that we educate the entire community regardless of their religion or belief. And I think it's really interesting that we are, as the Irish state model, multi-denominational and not non-denominational. So for example, the state school system in France would be very much a non-denominational model, where they don't use that term, they use the term laïcité, but they wouldn't talk about religious education, they wouldn't have any symbols or images, or they wouldn't celebrate different religious festivals and so on. That's not the case in a Community National School. We really see the benefit for children to be educated in an environment that celebrates their different religions, beliefs. So we would have absolutely a Christmas tree at Christmas, or possibly Krubik Christmas, but also Eid and Diwali and so on. So we celebrate all the different festivals that are important to the children in our schools. So they're the three words on the outer rung. And then what values underpin our ethos in our schools? And they are excellence in education, care, equality, community, and respect. So the first word there is really that term, excellence in education. That's a really important one. Obviously, we're in education, and it's really important that every child in our schools reaches their full potential. So it doesn't mean that we expect A's and the highest scores from every single child, but that we meet each and every one at where they're at and challenge them at their level to reach their full potential. That is really, really important in all of our schools. But also that it's not just about academics, that they are educated in an environment where they know that they're cared for, where they're treated equally, they're part and feel part of the school and wider community, and that they are treated with respect, not just to children, but the teachers, the parents, and so on. The entire school community really buys into these values, feels these values alive every day. And we've had a lot of research done in relation to these values that we hold very dearly. And that has come up time and time again, that when children are educated in that environment with care, equality, community, and respect as core values underpinning all of our policies and practices, that naturally leads to academic achievement, that they have, that creates the right conditions for them to succeed academically as well. So we're really proud to have and to promote those particular values in our schools. So then just to look briefly at the Community National School model. So we were established relatively recently in 2007. We're a growing model of primary education. As I said, we've currently 27 Community National Schools across 8 education and training boards. So there are 16 education and training boards across the country. I'll talk to you more about those on the next slide. Currently, 8 of them have Community National Schools. But we really hope that soon into the future, that all 16 education training boards, and you'll see those dots expand if we were to do this presentation again this time next year, 2 years time and so on, you will hopefully see a lot more dots across that map into the near future. But of the 27 schools that we currently have, 14 of them were established in areas of demographic growth where the population is growing, and the Department of Education has identified the need for a new school to cater for all the new children in that area. And we have competed for the patronage of those schools, and we've got 14 of those to date. And then very interestingly, and probably we'll see a lot more of this in Ireland in the future, is a transfer of schools, existing schools, that are under the patronage of religious bodies over to the Community National School model. So we've had 13 schools to date that have come over from predominantly Catholic, the Catholic religion, but also Church of Ireland schools as well, that have come over under the patronage of ETBs and reopened as, as Community National Schools. So I think what's really important is that when you're considering different school types, as I said, myself and Megan, we both taught in the same school in City West, and in City West in particular, parents that were, I suppose, of children who are about to start junior infants, started thinking about, well, where will I send my child to school? And they were really spoiled for choice in some ways, in that our school was in the same building as an Educate Together school. We opened on the same day. We were surrounded with lots of schools with the Catholic ethos, those schools with the Church of Ireland ethos, there are Gael Scoilna. So there was lots of choice for parents in that particular area that many parents across the country don't have. But what I noticed is when we used to run information evenings in the January before the next academic year, just so that parents in that locality would be informed about what it is our school offered, so that they would make an informed decision. What we quickly noticed is that parents felt quite overwhelmed by that choice, because they realized, oh goodness, there's a lot of choice here, and it's really important that we make the right decision for our child. And we realized that it's really important that parents understand there are huge similarities. Just to take that overwhelming feeling out, there are huge similarities between all schools, regardless of the patron. And we have them up here listed, in that the curriculum is decided by the state, by the Department of Education, the Minister, and the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment establishes that state curriculum. I'll talk to you a bit about our own patrons' curriculum on the next slide. The funding for teachers, for SNAs, for secretarial staff, for the school building upkeep and so on, that is centrally mandated by the Department of Education, and we follow the circulars, the relevant circulars and various documentation that issues about that, like every other school. The staffing allocation, the teachers, the SNAs, the secretarial, the caretaking staff, all that is decided centrally, depending on the school size, etc., like every other school in the country. Every school, like every other school, every community national school has a parent association. And as well as that, when you think of the board of management that governs each school in the country, there are 8 members on all primary schools boards of management, and that's no different in a community national school. And you'll see there the pictures of the curriculum and also of the governance manual for primary schools, in terms of the manual that we really look at in terms of how we manage our schools. That is shared across all schools in the country, regardless of their patron. Then in terms of differences, there are key differences between the school types as well. And I suppose first and foremost would be our ethos in terms of the values that our school promotes. And I spoke to you a bit about that on the previous slides. and that we would hold those values very dearly. And we have, I suppose, and we're not saying that they're unique to community national schools, but these are the ones that we prioritize and that we promote. Unique as well, I said in the last slide that the curriculum is the same across all schools, regardless of the patron. However, Megan will talk to you about the Goodness Me, Goodness You curriculum, which is unique to community national schools in the next couple of slides. I said already that we are state funded like every other school in the country, but state run is a key difference there because we're under the patronage of ETBs, which are state bodies. Going on to the next point around boards of management. While the constitution of that board of management is the exact same in terms of those 8 members and who they are nominees of, the functions are different. In that, in every other primary school in the country, the board of management acts as the employer of the staff in the school. And whereas in a community national school, the ETB is the employer. So that any staffing or IR issues are addressed at ETB level rather than the board of management level. And that really frees up the board of management to support the principal in managing the day-to-day life of the school, rather than getting caught up in very legal and technical issues such as HR and IR. Sacramental preparation. I think across the country, the majority of children attending community national schools are Catholic children, but their parents, although that is important to them, want their children to be educated in a multi-denominational context. But they still, many of them, the vast majority of them, still choose to receive their Holy Communion and confirmation, for example. Now that is done, they can still do that, but that's done outside the school day, where that would be a big part of the inside the school day in a Catholic school. That is done outside the school day by the parish. Essentially has responsibility for that, and they organise, be it a teacher from the school to do that after school, or somebody else from the parish to do it. But that all children attending CNSs have the opportunity to do their sacraments, but outside of the school day. And the next key difference between a community national school and other school types is the supports that they get from their patron education and training board, and also from us, myself and Megan and our colleagues in Education and Training Boards Ireland. I'll talk to you about that on the next slide. And sorry, just before I move on to the next slide, you'll see a picture of the Goodness Me, Goodness You curriculum there, our ethos, but also on those key differences in the governance. So the last slide had a picture of the National Governance Manual, but there are key differences, like the functions of the Board of Management not being the employer. As well as that, the Board of Management would normally, in another school, would have a treasurer that would have a huge responsibility around the school's finances. Where in a CNS, the ETB has a finance section in each ETB that really looks after that aspect of our schools. So all that is laid out in a handbook that we've developed in ETBI on that governance manual to kind of really tease out those differences. So then, excuse me, to look at ETBs in particular, the map there on the right hand side of the screen shows you the 16 ETBs. So you might be able to identify where you're at in the country and your local ETB. And they are state bodies, and they are in charge of not only community national schools, but we have over 250 post-primary schools. Excuse me. They manage youth work and further education and training colleges as well. But I suppose for the purpose of this presentation, we're focusing on their role as patrons of community national schools. So the patron of a school, be it a bishop, a Catholic Church of Ireland, or Educate Together, and the ETB, they are responsible for establishing the ethos of their schools. And we talked to you quite a bit about that already, and Megan will talk to you more about the patron's curriculum in the next couple of slides. So ETBs have a long established, they were established in the 1930s and have a long established history at post-primary level in particular for inclusive, innovative and high quality educations. And just we're bringing that down to primary level now since 2007. ETBI, where Megan and I work, is a national representative body for all 16 ETBs. And we work a lot with other national stakeholders, with the Department of Education, with the National Parents Council, the National Council of Curriculum Assessment, and so on, representing those 16 ETBs. And then we provide, ETBs provide supports to CNSs, and so does ETBI in very specific ways. And next, on our next slide, we have a principal of one of our community national schools, or the Community National School in Navan, and Dara is our principal there, and he's going to talk to you about what kind of supports that ETBs offer community national schools, and then Megan will talk to you a bit more about how ETBI supports our community national schools as well. So over to Dara now.
My name is Dara Rowe, and I'm the principal of Ardrey Community National School in Navan. Community National Schools are under the patronage of the Education and Training Boards. There are 16 ETBs right across Ireland, and each ETB is a separate statutory authority. One major advantage of ETB patronage is each ETB knows its area very well and can use this local knowledge to respond to the education and training needs of its local community. As a school, we benefit greatly from the broad range of professional supports and services offered by our local ETB. We benefit from a dedicated Director of Schools who supports our ethos development, policy development, CPD, teaching and learning. We have a building department who help us manage construction and facilities, an IT department who support the procurement and management of tech equipment, corporate education services counsel us through GDPR, FOI, risk, insurance, etc. The finance department makes sure we balance our books, and HR work hard to ensure we recruit the best teachers. There's a strong network of community national school principals, and together we share ideas and work on projects throughout the year. With the behind-the-scenes support of your local ETB, CNS principals and their teaching teams can focus on their primary task of caring for the children and leading quality teaching and learning.
That's great. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Megan.
Thanks, Seamus. Thank you for that. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm just going to speak to you now, everybody, for a few moments about goodness me, goodness you. And I suppose Seamus has already outlined to you, the ethos of community national schools, the values of excellence in education, care, equality, community, respect. You can see them again on our screen here. And I suppose goodness me, goodness you is the patron's curriculum for community national schools. And really what that means is that it's the curricular expression of the ethos of community national schools, of those 5 values as a state co-educational multi-denominational school. And really it's the explicit realization of that ethos through a curricular subject. I suppose really what's important to know about GMGY is that it was written by the NCCA. So Seamus would have shown you earlier on the National Primary School Curriculum and the Draft Primary Curriculum Framework. They were also written by the NCCA. And as Ireland's state primary schools, the NCCA also produced the CNS Patrons Curriculum, GMGY. I suppose another really important point about GMGY is that it's described as a multi-belief and values education curriculum. And really what that means is that it's concerned with the holistic development of the child, and it really aims to affirm various aspects of the child's identity and really foster understanding of individual and shared values. I suppose on top of that, another really important point to help you understand, I suppose, what it's like for children to experience GMGY on the ground is that I suppose GMGY is a curriculum which takes a pluralist approach. And you might be wondering, well, what does a pluralist approach mean? Really, what it means is that all members of the school community, children, parents, teachers, and so on, they can bring their identity with them to school. They don't have to leave that identity at the school gate or at the classroom door. They can bring it with them to the GMGY lesson. And really, a community national school, and you may have gathered this already from our exploration of the 5 core values and our ethos, community national schools really respect everybody's right to express their own beliefs and values during the school day. And I suppose this doesn't mean, that everybody's beliefs and values will align. I suppose there's bound to be tension, there's bound to be conflict, but through a pluralist approach and through goodness me, goodness you, we don't try to iron out those differences, but rather what we try to do is engage in dialogue, inquiry and reflection with the children to help them build towards mutual respect and understanding. I suppose just to give you an insight into the context of GMGY at the moment, I suppose the development of GMGY, as I said, it was written by the NCCA. That concluded in 2018 when the curriculum was published. And at the moment, we're engaging in an ongoing process of GMGY implementation, where we're rolling out that curriculum in schools. And I suppose ETBI, myself and Seamus and our colleagues, we support community national schools with the ongoing provision through professional development and so on of teaching and learning of GMGY on the ground. And I suppose later what I'd like to do is give you some suggestions as parents and prospective or current parents in community national schools on how you can support teaching and learning in GMGY in your children's schools, and support that GMGY implementation process, because no more than anything else in a community national school, it involves support from ETBs, from principals, from teachers, from children, and from parents. And you play a really important role in the CNS model. I think it's in the name there. We're called community national schools because community is really, really important. And we'd like to help you play your part in that. So what does the GMGY curriculum actually look like? Oh, apologies, I skipped too far along. What does the GMGY curriculum actually look like? So what I'll take now is a moment just to give you an insight into what I suppose children experience on the ground through teaching and learning in GMGY by providing you with an overview of the 4 strands of the curriculum. And the strands are really the main areas of learning. So there are 4 strands in GMGY, and they are My Stories, We Are a Community National School, Thinking Time, and Beliefs and Religions. We'll start with strand 1, which is called My Stories. Really, this strand helps children to develop a confident and positive sense of self and group identity. It helps them develop a sense of belonging, and also helps them to develop, I suppose, a respect for and an understanding of the identity and belonging of others. And that's really in line with that pluralist approach that I already mentioned. And really through this strand, and I've seen this on the ground in my own classroom, you know, children really come to know themselves and others more deeply. And that really occurs through dialogue as well as through sharing of stories and experiences. Just to take a look then at strand 2 then, I suppose, which is called the We Are Community National School strand. This strand, I suppose, helps children to develop an understanding of their own values and the values of others. And I suppose in doing that, it helps them to develop as an individual, but also as a social being, and really contribute to the good of society. I suppose the strand really provides children with an opportunity to learn about, I suppose, the values of community national schools. So excellence in education, care, equality, community, and respect, what they mean, what they look like in practice. And I suppose it also provides an opportunity to help children engage in concepts such as engage with concepts such as citizenship, democracy, justice, human rights, and so on as well. Looking now at the 3rd strand of GMGY, this is called Thinking Time. Thinking Time takes a philosophical approach to primary education. And really, it aims to support children's well-being and their thinking skills. And I suppose through this strand, children develop skills and dispositions and attitudes, I suppose, to help them engage in meaningful dialogue and inquiry and reflection. And what's lovely about this strand is that it provides an explicit opportunity within the curriculum for children to think about and reflect on the big questions. The questions I'm sure they stump you with every single day. Like, what is happiness? You know, are people naturally good or are they evil? Why is the water blue? So we can look at that a little bit more factually as well. How do we know we're making the right choice? And I suppose this strand also explicitly focuses, as well as on, I suppose, thinking and asking questions and dialogue, it also focuses in on emotions and well-being. And that helps children really to foster, you know, their emotional expression, their self-esteem, and also to help them nurture resilience. Finally, the 4th strand of GMGY is called Beliefs and Religions, and this strand takes what's referred to as a multi-denominational approach to religious education, and Seamus would have already outlined that multi-denominational term earlier in the presentation. But really, what this strand aims to do is to help children develop an understanding of the diversity of beliefs that inform their own and other people's ways of living. And in addition to that, respect and appreciate everyone's right to express their beliefs. So hopefully that gives you a little insight into what GMGY is like and what children experience on the ground. But now I'm just going to give you a little insight into how parents can support teaching and learning in GMGY. So I suppose it's important to say that I suppose originally parents, along with teachers and children, played a really big role in the development of the GMGY curriculum itself. And I suppose although that curriculum development process has concluded, and parents can continue to play an important role by supporting curriculum implementation. So I'm just going to give you a few suggestions now about what that might look like. So I suppose firstly, you might take an opportunity after this webinar. You've already started with this, but you might kind of do a little bit more digging afterwards. You might take the opportunity just to learn a little bit more about the curriculum. And there's a few ways you can do that. I suppose firstly, independently, you might, take a look at the GMGY section of the CNS website, which I've shown here on screen. But you can also take an opportunity to talk to your child's teacher about GMGY. And the teachers, from my experience in community national schools, are really passionate about GMGY, and they do appreciate it as a really strong expression of the school's ethos, and I'm sure that and they'd only be delighted to talk to you about it. You can also talk to the school's principal, and there's also a GMGY coordinator in every school who are responsible for teaching and learning in GMGY on the ground. So feel free to talk to them too. And I'm sure the school, again, bringing it back to that word community national school, would be delighted to have you engage in those discussions as partners in teaching and learning in GMGY. I suppose just on another level, and just as important, if not more important, is to start talking to your child about teaching and learning in GMGY, asking them to chat about the lessons that they have, I suppose, engaged in around diversity, inclusion, the lessons they've learned about their community, about citizenship, about respect, fairness, equality, just to get them thinking about that. And to support their learning in GMGY, you might also, start sharing your own stories and experiences with your children, those of your family, your community, from the past or present, and that will really help and children foster their own sense of self and belonging, which, as I'm sure you've already gathered, is a really important part of the curriculum. I suppose in addition to that, I suppose you might also start using the GMGY materials that are sent home to support teaching and learning in the curriculum, and they can be a great way to help children get talking about their learning. I suppose an example, and there are different materials that might be sent home, but an example of materials that might be sent home is the family project, which you can see here on the screen. And I suppose a family project, it's an activity that requires, I suppose, or asks children and parents and guardians to sit down and discuss the topic from their own perspective. And a theme that you might explore in a family project is stories and books that are special to you and to your family. And I suppose in doing that, you're providing the children with point of reference that they can bring into school to talk about their family, their experience, their identity, and their sense of belonging. Okay. So I suppose just some other ways that you might, I suppose, support the curriculum implementation on the ground, include, attending meetings where maybe the teachers are presenting on teaching and learning in GMGY, also giving feedback on your child's learning in GMGY, whether that's through lessons on the ground, through their experience of the environment, the stories that are being used, the displays in the school, and so on, celebrations and events that are facilitated, providing feedback on that and supporting those schools in those areas. In addition to that, you might be invited to visit the classroom or the school to share a particular experience. And if you're comfortable with that, the school would be delighted to have you share that experience, because that really provides an authentic learning experience for the children. I suppose, and finally, you could also inform the school of some celebrations and events, and help schools prepare for celebrations and events that are meaningful to you, your family, and your community, because that's a really important part of GMGY and the CNS ethos, affirming and celebrating diversity. So Seamus, I'll just pass back to you.
That's great, Megan, thank you. So we said at the beginning, and if you're a current parent in a community national school, I think we're all eager that we're part of a growing and thriving network of schools, and that we are. So I think what we'll see into the future is that there are currently just over 100, maybe not even 150 of the 3,000 primary schools in Ireland at the moment are multi-denominational or equality based. In the programme for government, they have an ambition to have 400 of the 3,000 schools to be multi-denominational, to offer some choice to parents across the country by 2030. So we really hope that we'll be the patrons of a lot more schools coming up between now and 2030, so that parents do have a choice. In this September coming, we will be opening up our Nina Community National School, which is again reconfigured, transferred from the Catholic patron over to the ETB, Tipperary ETB, and is opening as a community national school in Tipperary. And that will be Tipperary's first multi-denominational school, which is really significant. And there are still other counties with no choice whatsoever for parents. So we really do believe that parents deserve to have a choice of the type of school that they send their children to. So this will, currently the Department of Education is leading out on a pilot process in those areas: Arklow, Athlone, Cork, Dublin, Dundalk, Galway, Limerick and Youghal, and where they are piloting a process where schools can engage with in a conversation with their existing patron and with themselves about the possibility of reconfiguring to become a multi-denominational community national school. So they're the areas listed there. But if you're not in any of those areas and interested in your current school or the school you want to send your child to in becoming a community national school, that's still possible. And that we have a process on our website. If you go onto the cns.ie website, Megan will put up details about that in the next slide, and you will see a link there to becoming a community national school. And we've outlined a process, because sometimes parents, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher that's really interested in exploring this option, but it's so big they don't know where to start. So we have a document there called Becoming Community National Schools, that what we call early movers, that that aren't part of this pilot process, they can also engage, but ultimately they will need to seek permission and engage with the existing patron before those conversations get to a too developed stage. They have to engage with their existing patron. But our experience to date is that the existing patrons, if they sense and get a good sense of an appetite within the school community, they're very open and generous about engaging with the school community in relation to this. And then for more information on the Community National School model, go to the cns.ie website. You can go to the ETBI website. We have a big section there in relation to that. And also our school, you can follow either individual schools that are close. You'll see the list of schools on our cns.ie website, and you can follow schools that are close to you on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram. So some of them are very social media savvy. And of course we have CNS Ireland and at ETBI Ireland as well. So if you're on those on Twitter, you can follow us there as well. So that is it for today's informational webinar. We hope that it provided you with an overview of what community national schools offer, and maybe a glimpse into how they will grow into the future as well. So thank you very much.